he was a very good golfer, but he liked swearing as well, and yeah, a real character. And one of his good friends I still golf with the Mid-Ocean Seniors, still talks about Ervin and the times they had together. So yeah, he was a prankster and funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was somebody that everybody knew, so it would be unlikely to find somebody that didn't already know who he was. And you know, he was so long at the airport, and he was always talking to people and always greeting people that he probably knew half the island anyway.
He was loud, but in a good way. He wasn't mean or anything like that. He was very friendly, very bouncy, like, you know, just bouncy. Mm-hmm. And loud. Mm-hmm. Very loud.
My dad was, everybody liked him because he had a great personality. He was funny, and he just made people laugh.
He was a sportsman, so he played a lot of sports. We used to get to go to watch them.
We used to play cribbage, and he never tried to be easy on me. And of course, he was a lot better than me, and he always beat me, and he always would tease me because he beat me. I used to get so mad at him, but you know, it was kind of funny looking back now.
He played every sport, and he didn't let you win, because I remember he took me and Aunt Debbie to squash, and it was terrible. I think we were both crying at the end because he beat us so badly. It was like, we've never played this. I mean, why can't you let us win? So he never let us win. But that was fun. Yeah, he used to take us to the squash court so he could beat us. And in tennis, he would take us to tennis to beat us.
He played every sport. He played golf. He was always better than me. I was never even close to ever beating him. I think he probably beat most of my other in-laws, brother-in-laws, most of the time. Anyway, I think I remember the last time we played golf, and it was me and my tenant and Dad and Eldon, and I'm pretty sure they beat us. And I'm pretty sure he wasn't too happy about that he didn't beat us by a lot more.
It was 3 girls, and then Mom got pregnant again, and I was staying down at Volvy's house. And in those days, the guy didn't go to the birth, and they called to say she had had her baby, and he was like, "I'm not going to take that phone call. It's only going to be another girl."
We used to have a big trip every year, a big vacation. So we always did that. So we always, yeah, that was always a lot of fun. Disney World. And he used to go to places, take us places where kids like to go. I remember the Parrot Jungle, and you know. So yeah, they always took us on vacations together. So that was always nice, to be a family on vacation.
When he went to work at Eastern Airlines, he was so happy. He loved working at Eastern Airlines. And my first trip, I think I was only 4 or 5 maybe. I went with Granny and Pa to New York, because of course now that he was working at Eastern, we could get free trips. Mm-hmm. And it was a great trip. I think it was probably like in December, and it had all the Christmas decorations up, and it was really good.
We had a prowler, right, when we lived at Saucus Hill. And I'm pretty sure maybe it was Gail and Debbie were in the little room, and I had the other room, and of course Mom and Dad had the other bedroom. And I think it was like, and I didn't remember this because again, I might have been 10 or something like that. But the story was that Gail or Debbie, whichever one it was, realized there's somebody outside in the yard peeking through the window with them in the bedroom. And one of them screamed. I can't remember which one of them screamed. Mom says, Dad bolted out of bed, ready to defend his herd, took off to the rescue, ran straight into the closet, was battling her dresses for a minute at least, screaming and cursing and flailing around in the closet, trying to figure out who was attacking him, what was going on, why he couldn't see, and why he wasn't having any effect at getting to where he thought he had to go. But of course he was completely asleep at that point.
Good Friday, when he was flying a kite, and I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. He jumped, and everybody was laughing at him because he looked like he was gonna go up with the kite or something. You know, it was so funny.
At our wedding, and when we were taking pictures at Harmony Hall, and he was, of course, Carol's like almost 6 feet tall, and I'm 6'3", and virtually everybody, even if they're short, are taller than Dad. And so Dad's complaint, every single photo was, I'm standing in a hole. Why are you always putting me where I'm standing in a hole? Because if he was standing next to me, he was coming up to my shoulder. If he was standing next to Carol, he was barely coming up to her shoulders. So he thought that was very unfair that the photographer had always arranged for him to be the shortest person in the photograph.
We had a couple curfews when we were growing up, and he worked at Eastern, so he had a Eastern car, a airline car. So one night he decided that we were just going from my granny's to my house. It was literally 100 feet away on the road though, so we had to be hidden. Mm-hmm. So he had a big Eastern van, and he let all of us go in the back and hide. But it was my cousins, it was me and Aunt Gail, and even I think Uncle Nick must have been there. It was Stephen and Dean DaCosta and all of them. We got in the van, we hid. It was such a big thing, right? Well, he was driving and the back of the trunk came open and my cousin Dean fell out onto the road. So here we are trying to sneak through curfew and all of this stuff happened.
But yeah, the time with Uncle Nick's, when Uncle Nick got married, and yeah, and then he was supposed to pick up the bike because Uncle Nick ran out of gas, and then he took somebody else's bike, and then he still tried to fit the key in, and the key didn't fit. Yet I thought by then he would have figured out that wasn't that, and it wasn't Uncle Nick's bike. Then he had a truck to go and pick it up, and he took it back to the house, and the guy reported it stolen, and the police came. It was like, what? How could you have done this? So yeah, I mean, he kind of did crazy things like that.
I remember we were living down at his house, and I think he was downstairs in the apartment, or he was downstairs, and Uncle Douglas and me and the kids moved in upstairs, something like that. And and Samantha always brought her friends home after school, and they would just sit around playing cards and things like that. And Pa would be as grumpy as ever, but in his fun grumpy. He didn't hate people, or he wasn't angry at people. He was just grumpy sometimes, but in a fun grumpy. And I think somebody said he must have come in and he was whining about one of the bikes. Who drives that bike out there? You know, his typical thing. And I think one of the kids say, "But you love us, Pa." And he just went, you know, and made his noises and walked off, sort of thing. But that was just his personality. You know, they complemented each other very well. I think Mom was so bubbly and didn't let anything bother her, and he was like.
He was stubborn, and he didn't want to take his oxygen. He would always try and make me give him cigarettes, and I'd say, no, you have to turn your oxygen off. But I also remember sitting outside, and he would, all the planes that would fly by, every single one, he would know which one it was and where it was coming from.
We used to take a sheet out and lay on the yard and lay there and look at the stars. And we used to do it all the time. And he used to, that was his thing. We'd go outside and look at the stars and spot the satellites going by and stuff like that. So yeah, he did that. And he took me and Debbie to weird movies. I remember he took us to one of the Beatles movie, It's a Hard Day's Night. That was weird. And kind of like the Go-Go movies or something. Yeah, that was a bit weird. He used to take us to movies. I remember that. Yeah, it was kind of fun.
So I would get a pass and fly into Tampa, and it was very difficult. It was always very difficult to get to my school because my school was way out in the middle of nowhere. So eventually I convinced Dad to buy me a car. So I bought a car. It was a 1979 Honda Prelude, and it was probably 1989, so it was at least 10 years old. And Dad was still at that point convinced that his job was to drive the car, and it was not anybody else's job to drive any car that he was in. So he would have to drive the car, even though it was my car, when he would come to visit. So him and Mom would come to visit, and this is this little tiny Honda Prelude, two-door, barely had a back seat. And rather than rent a car, he would drive my car. And it was funny because, I mean, the car was small, poor Mom would have to cram into the back. And I would sit in the front with him, and it was a manual transmission, and I had put this stupid little 8-inch steering wheel on it. So he would grump and complain about the steering wheel and the manual transmission, and I think at that point, I mean, he could barely see at night. And we're driving down Dale Mabry Boulevard, and Mom is talking to him about, I think, Ervin, why won't you let him drive the car? You don't know where you're going, etc., and so on. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling him, I remember this, I'm telling him, we're turning down at the end by the lights, and he's turning into this little side road, and I'm telling him, no, not here, you have to go down by the lights. And he's no, I'm turning here. So he realizes now we're turning down a one-way road where the traffic's coming towards us now. So now he's, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get out of this situation. So he's driving this car that he's incredibly uncomfortable driving with an 8-inch steering wheel and its manual transmission. And he's flooring it, and we're going sideways, and we end up going over the median at 30 miles an hour. Crash, crash. Mom is screaming. He's yelling at everybody. And we get over it, and he pulls over to the side. And Mom says, Ervin, are you going to let him drive the car now? Yes, I guess we'll let him drive the car.
You know, he used to take me and Aunt Debbie. I don't remember your mom. I don't remember Uncle Nick being there. I guess it was always me and Aunt Debbie for some reason. He used to take us down to Belmont Pool because we were members at Belmont. And we'd go and swim in the pool, and then we'd have to go get our shower because, you know, back then you had to conserve water. And, you know, and he hated us using the shower. I don't even think we used a shower. He used to make us use that much water in the bathtub, and we used to all have to share. And I mean, so he used to take us down to Belmont. We used to have to shower down there and get dressed and then go home after that.
He was sick, and I went and stayed with him every day. I was so happy that I got to stay with him and got to spend all that time with him. I felt I really got to know him a lot better.
I'm always sad that we didn't have more time together, because, to be honest, we were actually just starting to get to the point where I was less of a pig-headed idiot kid, and we were starting to get along a little bit. And, you know, we played golf a few times, and, you know, I think we really enjoyed that. So, you know, I think, you know, I always remember my dad as, you know, basically somebody who was, you know, a rock. You know, he always knew what to do. He always knew how things worked. Couldn't fix anything, but he always knew how stuff was supposed to work, and he was always there, you know, to tell us how to do stuff, usually the right way. So yeah, I mean, I wish, you know, he'd been around for longer. I wish he could have met Connor. Yeah, so I mean, that's the main thing I would think about Dad was, you know, I wish we'd had a little more time till we could have got to the point where we got along better. But I think in the last few years we were better, and like I said, we had a bit more fun, and had gotten out of the point where he had to beat sense into me every day.